Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd, sick of looking at myself. And it's time for a review of the new Refused album, Freedom, Freedom.
Yep, that's how we're gonna save the world. Reduce, refuse, and recycle.
You know, you just don't understand the things I say. You don't understand that this is a music review show, that these are just band names. And I'm just going to let it slide this time because you just seem like a simple guy, you seem nice, and I'm just not going to get mad. I'm just not going to get mad.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you not acting toward anger.
Refused is a Swedish rock band who back in the late 90s released a full-length LP that did exactly what its title said it would do. It in fact influenced and kind of set the stage for a lot of the rhythmically complex hardcore and art punk that would be released throughout the 2000s. But after the release of this LP, Refused essentially put things on hold, kind of broke up for all intents and purposes, and they've been in a state of studio album silence for over 15 years. Oh my god, that's a long time. Now, a few years ago, the band has been getting back together for live performances. Didn't really know a full-length album was in the works, but here we go. It's here. Freedom. It's here. The band teased toured this LP not too long ago with a lead single, Electra, that opens this album up. It was a pretty mild track. Not terrible, but also not quite as exciting or blood-pumping, or I guess technically complex as a lot of the band's old stuff, their last albums specifically. But there was still hope for this album for me because this song, you know, sounded like it was in Refused's style. They weren't going to be throwing us a left hook, not really delivering what people would expect can kind of be a nail in the coffin for a comeback record. But comeback records in general are just like a recipe for disappointment. Either people want you to make the sound you used to make, but you sound too different now, or maybe you sound too much like the old days. I mean, there's just no pleasing people on the comeback record. I mean, just the margin of success for a comeback record is just so low. Expectations are just so high, meeting them becomes a near impossibility. And I don't know, I just don't really feel like this new comeback record really lives up to what I was hoping for it to be quality-wise either. And I don't really think this album even lived up to Refused's expectations. I mean, they certainly seem to give up pretty easy as soon as the first track of this album rolls by, where it kind of feels like they've said to themselves, all right, so that was sort of in our usual style, but there's no way we're going to be besting ourselves when it comes to that. So let's just completely change pace. Let's just completely start incorporating elements into our music that no way our fans are going to like. And I think that is exactly what happens on the second track here, where we start getting some weird, deeply pitched vocals on the chorus of this track, as well as some hard rock guitars and drums. But there's something kind of weird and left field about this song, and I think that in a way it kind of reminds me of like the weird stuff Faith No More used to do. And even though there is a really clear hard rock influence on this track, Refused still maintains its really aggressive production style, their screamed vocals. It still sounds like a Refused track. Refused really takes a risk on this track. They do something weird with this hard rock style, and I think it turns out into a pretty interesting song. I feel the same way about the song Destroy the Man as well, which has these just hard rocking guitars, these really cool background vocals. It just feels like I'm listening to hard rock and roll from another weird dimension. And I think the band could have come through with a refreshing record if they continued to work this angle, but I feel like the hard rock influences, the glam rock and the glam metal influences on this record lose their novelty at about the fourth track into this album because the band stops experimenting with them, they stop warping them, and I think they just almost literally start just delivering some cheesy hard rock, especially with the kids chorus on this track and the sort of bluesy guitar riffs. I kind of feel like I'm listening to like an Aerosmith song or something. The sound of this track is really shallow. Meanwhile, the lyrics are trying to make this sensationalist statement about violence and murder and genocide. And the slower tracks in the track listing here, the ones that have more melodic vocals, like the next song on here, or the very long-winded closing track, I feel like Refused pushed themselves into territory where just the lyrics and the vocal delivery just sound so melodramatic. The blood is gushing. Ooh. And the way the band incorporates horns into some of these songs as well, like War on the Palaces, just so overblown. This track specifically just like reeks of Hairspray and headbands and flying V guitars and noodly solos. Not really a sound I want to hear from any band, much less Refused. Plus, on top of it, the fact that this record is just like a very brief 10 tracks, it just feels like Refused didn't really fold under the pressure of coming together with a comeback record. Rather, it feels like they just saw the pressure there and they're like, you know, let's just not even wrestle with that. Who cares? Whatever. There were definitely a few moments on this LP where the addition of the hard rock riffs made things kind of interesting, but for the most part it just kind of feels like it's this element the band switched in for just kind of a songwriting crutch, like, oh, you know, we could do this. Though I do like the drumming on this LP, I do like the vocals for the most part, I do think the production is pretty good. It just kind of feels like songwriting wise, the band got super duper complacent as well as hokey with the way they were just aping all of these 80s hard rock riffs, which really just create a dry spell of enjoyability in about the midpoint of the record. The album starts off okay and it ends all right too, but just getting through that middle part is really just a trudge. My God, I'm feeling a decent strong 4 on this thing. Transition. Have you given this record a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, Refused forever.